So good afternoon and welcome to today's session with Robbie Gordon from Wonderfuls. As Kenneth said, that we are recording this session following on from Education Scotland's National Creativity event, where we were unable to record due to some technical hitches. So today's will be shared with Education Scotland on the events resource page on the ES website. So I'd ask that all microphones are kept switched off and cameras switched off as well so that we can focus on the session that Robbie's put together for us. If you'd like to introduce yourselves or contribute to the conversation, or if you're having any tech issues, please just use the chat function today. I'm here to introduce the session and host a short discussion at the end with Robbie. As we go, feel free to add in any questions into the chat. I'll keep an eye on those and feed them into the discussion at the end. And there will be an opportunity to pose any other questions if we've got time for that at the end. As I was saying, the focus of today is on Positive Stories for Negative Times, which is a participatory project led by Wonderfuls in association with the Travers Theatre. And it was created during the pandemic in response to the lack of physical spaces for young people to participate in creative activities. So to give a bit of background before I pass over to Robbie, the creative learning team and the youth arts sector sort of wider have seen a lot of changes and disruption to delivery over the past year, as is expected and as we've seen sort of across the board. However, some of the amazing creative responses that creative leaders and people were coming forward with throughout this have really astounded us. We're really inspired by the sense of community, shared leadership and creativity, which has strengthened through the people and projects over the last year. And we hope that some of this learning will carry forward. Opportunities to come together have never felt more important and were really seized upon during this time. And that was when projects like Positive Stories for Negative Times really rose to the forefront, like a beacon for the sector where people wanted to be involved and connect with each other. And we were so impressed by the project and its impact over lockdown that we invited Robbie, who kindly agreed to come and host one of our Creative Scotland sessions at the Creativity and Leadership and Learning event, because yeah, that was held at the end of March. And I'm now going to pass over to Robbie, who's going to tell us a bit more about who Wonderfuls are and a bit about the origins of the project. So I'll just switch off my camera and I'll pop back in later, Robbie. Cheers.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Jonathan. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for having me as well. I'm really delighted to be here and speaking about the project. But firstly, I'm going to chat a wee bit about the theatre company Wonderfuls, kind of who we are and what we do. It's just really great to hear in the recognition really of the wider arts industry in terms of youth arts. Actually, it's particularly during the pandemic, it's just been such a good news story seeing youth theatres, young companies, colleges, universities, emerging companies really lead the way in terms of innovation and digital work and interesting projects during the pandemic. And really, like, for me, like, the youth theatre sector is the reason that I'm doing what I do now. And in terms of thinking about artistic leadership, which was the theme of the conference with Education Scotland, I certainly would not be an artistic leader if it wasn't for the youth theatre sector. And really the great work that Youth Theatre Arts Scotland do. I think the first time I saw other young people do theatre work was when I came to the sort of National Festival of Youth Theatre and saw that there was hundreds of people across Scotland a similar age to me who all wanted to do the same thing. And really this project is a bit of a response to the fact that that sort of space for sharing and space for connection is going to kind of be lost over the last 18 months. But I'll introduce Wonderfuls now. So, established in 2014, Wonderfuls are a contemporary theatre company. We seek unknown and forgotten stories lost in the evolving social landscape of modern Scotland that we are able to reshape and make theatre from. Working in all sorts of venues and spaces, in our short life, we've taken our work to pubs and nightclubs, fields and festivals, not to mention conventional studios and theatres too. We have produced full-scale productions between 2014 and 2019, which reached over 15,000 audience members and participants. And since March 2020, we have produced 5 digital projects, including audio plays, short films, and the international participatory project, Positive Stories for Negative Times. All those projects in total reached 18,000 people in 9 different countries. Wonderfuls are a charity, and we work across the creative industries and produced a manner of projects. And for us, the artistic form of the work isn't important. The things that are really important to us are community, people, and stories. So that is those are the 3 things that run through all our projects. And in regards to community, people, and stories, when we're working, we always tend to work in a sort of 3 different ways as well. And that is through a research-led process, co-creation, and co-design. So I'm going to speak about wee projects that sort of speak to our way of working. And I'm going to start with kind of a research-led process. So when I'm talking about research-led, and particularly with the emphasis of real people, communities and stories, I always go back to one of our first projects, 549 Scots of the Spanish Civil War, which was Creative Scotland funded and Heritage Lottery funded, as well as a number of trusts and foundations as well. But that project was all about going and working with the real people whose families went to fight in the Spanish Civil War. And it all started with a story that I heard in my local community. So I'm from a wee town called Prestonpans, and there's a bit of a resounding feeling of the fact that nothing ever happens there. And for me, it was like, I felt that growing up. I was like, where's the aspiration in this town? Like, I want to be, I want to go and do something artistic. But for me, my sort of aspirations were continually quashed kind of by the education system that I was in down there. And I really thought, I just thought kind of about the wider community and how the resounding feeling of nothing ever happens resonated within the young people that lived there, including myself. And my granddad told me a story about 4 people from Prestonpans that went to fight in the Spanish Civil War when they were young people. And firstly, I didn't know anything about the Spanish Civil War. It was really resigned to a chapter in a higher history textbook. So I was sort of amazed by the fact that this happened. And for anyone that doesn't know, for a bit of context, the Spanish Civil War happened in 1936 to 1939 and was kind of seen as a bit of a precursor to World War II. It was where Hitler and Mussolini tried out initial tactics, and it was the first kind of recorded bombing of civilians. Fundamentally, it's a play about fascism and combating fascism, and how 4 young people went from Prestonpans to Edinburgh, Edinburgh to Glasgow, Glasgow to London, across the Channel to Dieppe, Dieppe to Paris, Paris to Perpignan, and eventually into Spain. And this was before easy jet flights and all that as well. But that was a story. And my granddad told me that within the community that I grew up in. And that is when our research-led process initiated. We embedded ourselves, Wonderfuls embedded ourselves in that community for 2 years, hearing stories, having coffees, having pints with people connected to the subject matter. And whenever leads went cold, we had to innovate and find new ways to speak to more people and hear those stories. And I remember being quite young and quite naive when we first tackled the initial stages of that process, which was probably way back in 2016, when Jack and I would have been about 21, 22 years old. And we got the phone book and we phoned every single person with the same second name as the people that went to fight in the Spanish Civil War. And we eventually found these amazing leads. And that's what kind of led us to this sort of research-led process. And after we'd done the research, it led to a touring show, which went everywhere from town halls to civic spaces to theatres like the Traverse and the Citizens and Life Theatre up in Wick. But we also created an online digital archive. And this is where I speak about why form isn't important to us, because we use those stories in order to engage people in a different way. And that website is called 549.scot. And what I'll do is I'll just quickly share it for you. But really, it's an opportunity for people to dive into the research from the show and engage with it in a different way that isn't just theatre. And I'm kind of hoping that you can see that. But as we go down, there's a map of Scotland, and you're able to click into individual areas that we toured to, such as Cumnock, and hear the stories of different people that fought in the Spanish Civil War. And in addition to that, we also created an augmented reality installation as well, again, using a different art form to really sort of tell the stories and engage with communities. So I've spoken about research-led, the way of working that Wonderfuls do, but we also work within co-creation, which is another way that we work. And if I'm to speak about an example of a project that uses co-creation, I need to speak about the process that we're embarking upon. We've just finished embarking upon right now, which was Jack and I working with Capital Theatres in the Traverse Theatre on an audio drama called When the Sun Leaves the Sky, Meets the Sky, When the Sun Meets the Sky, which was a 4-month process undertaken during the pandemic, where we used Zoom to meet a group of people with a lived experience of dementia and their families in order to collectively write an audio drama together. Really what that space was us as artists facilitating a joint storytelling session where we would together craft text and craft a story, which would later be released, which was released last week as an audio drama, starring Tamdeen Byrne, Maureen Beattie, Rihanna MacDonald, and Irene Allen, amongst others, and which was scored also by Van Ives. And really, that process for us is just such a great example of the work we do in regards to co-creation, because, again, it's all about real people. It's all about a community of interest, and it's all about sharing stories in order to make something. And again, when we're speaking about form not being important, that's an audio drama to throw in the mix as well. And that kind of leads me on to the final way of working that we tend to do. So we've got research-led, we've got co-creation, and we've got co-design. And co-design leads me really nicely into talking about positive stories for negative times. And when I speak about co-design, really what that process was for us was we realised way back in March, we went, oh, right, there's a global pandemic happening. Firstly, you think about yourself and your jobs, and, I think we all worried about what the future was going to be for theatre. But really, we were all working within the college sector, the youth theatre sector, working with the young companies. Some of us were working at university at the time as a company, as Wonderfuls. And then also just with other third sector organisations. Down at the Gaiety, we work regularly with a care experience group of young people. And we realised that all these groups, all of a sudden, just stopped. And for us, that was like, all right, how can we respond to that as a theatre company? So what we did is we spent a good bit of time going and meeting these groups, and we couldn't meet them in person, so we told them about a wee platform called Zoom, uh, which we're all very accustomed to now. And we ran these creative sessions, which are effectively workshops where we played a few games, we told a couple of stories, and we really mined into the issues about really what was going on within the youth sector and the challenges that young people were facing. And so we've led a bit of a consultation process, and that kind of brings me back to this co-design aspect of positive stories for negative times. And really, the things that came out of the young people, there was loads, but I'm going to break it down into 3 really key points. They said there was a lack of positive structured space. And that is obviously a lack of physical space, but also some people were beginning to use Zoom, particularly college sector and university sector. But they said the lack of structure was really something that they were finding difficult. It was a real barrier for them. It was a bit of a free-for-all, and it wasn't really working. We all know those kind of Zoom rooms, right? The other one was a lack of connection with peers. So they felt like even though they were within a space, or maybe they weren't in a space, they just weren't able to connect with people in the same way. And then the other thing that young people said is there was a lack of exercises, games, and material. One young person in particular said, "I hope that I don't need to read Dennis Kelly DNA one more time, either in the space or online." So fundamentally, it seemed to us that actually, beyond the limitations of online working in the pandemic, there is actually not a great deal of new material written for young people in terms of plays being commissioned. So that was something, again, like similar plays coming up again and again and again. So people that had been in youth theatre for 5-10 years were finding the same material continually coming up. We extended this beyond just working with young people, and we thought it'd be really good to speak to the leaders of these groups as well within this co-design process. And they spoke about a lack of guidance around working online, which we probably all know. It was like just burst onto these spaces, and we didn't necessarily have the frameworks in place. There was another one about the lack of safety and well-being, concerns about safety and well-being of young people. And again, very similar point to what the young people said, a lack of exercises, games, and material. So we had all this information, right? And we were like, what are we going to do with it? Like, the Wonderfuls it's Jack Nurse, who's a theatre director, myself, who I would call myself a socially engaged theatre maker, and Steph Connell at this point, who's a producer, and Ailey Nurse, our assistant producer. So really what we did is we disseminated that information. We spoke to other organisations out there, such as YTAS, and we seek to develop a project that would really tackle some of these wider problems. And then basically at that point, when we shaped all these concerns together, we landed on the fact that positive stories for negative times would be, firstly, a training programme in safeguarding and digital best practice for leaders that would address some of the issues both by leaders and young people. The commissioning of 5 high-quality plays made for now by some of the best artists working in the UK. Which at that point was obviously was a bit of a tall order for us to set, but we achieved it in the end. And a handbook that would enable young people, experienced leaders, or those new to creative processes to take the play from the digital page to stage. And that would include games, exercises, strategies for online working. And in addition to that, an online sharing platform that would allow young people and leaders to see each other's work and act as a continual learning resource. So yeah, that was effectively what we decided we would design within that, responding to the research that we did. And then we took that back to the groups of young people for comment, and that is pretty much kind of exactly where we landed. And just to show you this kind of online platform for positive stories for negative times, here it is. This is what we landed on. So this is the Positive Stories for Negative Times website. As you can see, it's just Lovely illustration by the designer Molly Fairhurst. Wee bit of information about the project. And this is our online streaming platform. So it's a map of the world. And as you can see all the groups currently taking part. There is 100 and wow, I never even I was going to say I never knew there was a group in Africa, but it's because there isn't. Theatre Royal Dumfries is just in the wrong area. But as you can see, there are around 150 groups currently participating, and there's due to be another, we believe, 30 other groups who are going to be taking part between now and the end of the project at the end of June. But as you can see, we can stream in and we can look at all the different places where there's activity. And if we want to click into Mull Theatre, we can also watch Mull Theatre's play if my internet works. And here we are. So effectively, it's a streaming platform where people can kind of share practice, they can comment upon each other's work. And really, it's a way of responding to what I talked about initially. In regards to going, oh, well, we can't see each other's work now because of this digital space. But actually, there will be a bit of work on there for every participating group that is taking part in Positive Stories for Negative Times. And that leads me on to kind of talk about the plays. So I said that we were going to commission 5 high-quality plays. And these are Bad Bored Women of the Rooms by Sabrina Mahfouz. Sabrina Mahfouz is the writer-in-residence at the Globe and also works regularly for the Royal Court. But Sabrina wrote a storytelling adventure through the centuries of women and girls who have spent a lot of time stuck in a room. So it particularly looks at criminal, like badass criminal women throughout history and looks to shine a light upon the counterparts of people like it really asks the question, why do we talk about Al Capone and the Cray twins when actually there are some amazing female equivalents within history that have been written out. And it's an excellent play actually, written by Sabrina Mahfouz. We also commissioned Chris Thorpe, who is the associate writer at the Royal Court and the Manchester Exchange, as well as China Plate as well. And Chris wrote a dynamic text called Hold Out Your Hand, which asks questions about place, where we are now at the moment we're living through. And really, it's like a sort of, Chris has written a text with loads of space for the young people to devise their own material within. And it's a really gorgeous opportunity to sort of write in between the lines of one of Wonderful's favourite writers. And if I'm going to tell a really quick anecdote, but when Jack and I were 19, we wrote our first play, The Coolidge Effect. Maybe we were about 20. And I sent it to Chris Thorpe because he was my favourite playwright in the time, hoping that Chris might read it. And Chris was lovely enough to read the play and give us some dramaturgical feedback on it. So it's so magic to see this gone full circle, and Chris now being one of the commissions for Positive Stories for Negative Times. B. Webster as well wrote a commission. B. Webster was one of Playwright Studio Scotland's new playwrights last year, is a deaf playwright from Scotland, and wrote a play that really turns fairy tales on their heads and looks at gender, disability and mental health, and really uses looks at the gender norms and within traditional fairy tale structures and looks to sort of subvert them. And that's for ages 8+ as well. And we've seen all sorts of really exciting work come out of that. I think the youngest participant that's taking place in that is like 5 years old, and it is like just lovely to watch. In addition to that, Steph Smith, associate at the Traverse and Leeds Playhouse, wrote The Pack, which has been one of our most popular plays, which is a playful and poetic exploration about getting lost in the loneliness of your own living room, which I'm sure we can all relate to during the pandemic. And in addition to that, Wonderful's wrote a commission as well, which was in response to the tearing down of statues which happened in and around the Black Lives Matter protests. I'm going to bring it back round to co-creation, because for that particular project, we worked with the Widening Access to the Creative Industries Department, and we had a group of young people who helped us craft the play. And when we click on to the play itself, the young people can all be seen here, and they were just an excellent addition to the play, effectively. So yeah, that is effectively what the commissions were. And really the headline with this project really is that it's entirely free. Anyone can access it, and we aim to support any group who wants to be part of the project to be part of it as well. And that's been just really exciting for us, and it's really what we've seen is groups that might not traditionally participate in theatre or arts activity signing up in order to be part of this project as well, which has been really, really exciting and something that we look to push even further next year. So I'm just going to kind of like, as well as getting the plays for free and the support of the Wonderfuls team, we also have a handbook. And the handbook, what the handbook really does is kind of sets the groups up for the process. And the way we've designed it is so that leaders who've been teaching for years and years can pick it up, pick a few exercises, read how they've got to upload the play, and then just put it to the side. But for people that are potentially school teachers who don't traditionally do theatrical processes, or even third sector groups and charities that would like to pick it up and try a theatrical process with a group, it really takes people all the way from page to digital stage, as well as uploading your play onto the platform. And really, this was a way for us to just support people in order to feel like they could go on this creative process. And that's been made possible by our participation associates, Jim Nicol and Lisa Williamson, who are otherwise known as Hidden Root, because what they do is they help any group that might want to be part of the project and encourage them and use the handbook in order to get people involved, basically. And really, it's not just adult leaders that we look to inspire, but also young leaders as well. We've seen a few emerging companies pick these plays up, which for us, as a company who's kind of emerged in the last 5 to 10 years, 7 years, it's great to be inspiring future generations of young companies to start getting new work up on its feet, even during a pandemic. And we've also seen great examples of just young people self-initiating projects within schools or youth groups, and really taking leadership over developing their own skills and leading a process, basically. So really, what the handbook does is it outlines a process which is effectively picking your play, preparing for your process, and then the 3 really important steps in the middle for us are creating a safe space, forming positive relationships, and fostering a creative environment, effectively. And whenever we're planning a Wonderfuls project, we always think about creating an effective learning environment for young people. And to do so, we always embed the same principles in all of our work. So the 3 cornerstones of Wonderfuls participatory work really are to create an open, safe and inclusive space, foster a creative and fun environment to work in, and the other one is to form positive relationships through active listening, storytelling and discussion. And the reason we want to create an open and safe and inclusive space is to provide a platform for creativity and meaningful discussion. And really, participants first have to know they're working in a group that is open, safe and inclusive if we really, really want to get to the exciting work. So there's numerous exercises in the handbook that really help people build that space, even within the online context. The second tenet is obviously fostering a creative and fun environment to work in. And really that allows participants the freedom to be creative and artistic by delivering initial exercises that indicate the process will be fun and engaging. And we've again got solutions for that. And the third point is forming positive relationships through active listening, storytelling, and discussion. So this allows people to galvanise as a group, form meaningful friendships and collaborative partnerships, and become a collective sounding board for each other. So in the handbook for the project, there's a series of strategies and exercises that help leaders achieve these outcomes and create a similar positive learning environment to their own. It also includes further information on how to pick your play, prepare for your process, rehearse it, film it, edit it, and share it. So I spoke about those sort of three principles there. And usually if I had more time, we'd do an exercise for each of these kind of principles. But what I want to do is I do want to do one exercise just in order for us all to have a wee chance to kind of participate in a wee bit of the work so we can kind of get a feel for it. So if you're listening to me right now, it's quite interesting because I'm shouting into the void and just seeing wee letters. But if people could grab a pen and a bit of paper, or even just open up a Word document, that would be absolutely brilliant. And I'm just going to sort of offer a wee exercise from that really looks at that sort of third principle of Wonderful's participatory work, and that is forming positive relationships through active listening, storytelling, and discussion. So I've kind of spoken about Chris Thorpe's Hold Out Your Hand, and I spoke about how there's like this really beautiful bits of space within the text in order for like young people kind of to fill in their own ideas, their own thoughts, their own feelings. And there is a wee task that he sets up that gets people writing, and it really acts as a springboard for discussion. And we're going to do it together right now. So Chris's piece is all about the world we're living in now, and it reflects upon the pandemic, and he offers up space for sort of young people's ideas to conclude the show. And now we're going to do a continuous writing task to create our own text as a group today, as an ensemble. So I'm going to give you the rules, if that's all right. So the task is called something to hold on to, something to let go of, right? So if you've got a piece of paper, or if you've got a Word document open, if you could write at the top of it, something to hold on to, something to let go of. So that's just something to hold on to, something to let go of. So I'm going to give you the rules for this continuous writing task. I want you to write continuously, because it's a continuous writing task. And I want you to reflect upon last year, right? Well, the last 18 months we've all been living through, because that's what Chris Thorpe invites us to do as part of his play. Every sentence must start with, I will hold on to, or I will let go of, right? So I want you to kind of finish those sentences as many times as you can over the next 3 minutes, right? But do not stop, right? Do not stop whatever you do. So if you get stuck, I just want you to repeat the line. I will hold on to, I will let go of, I will hold on to, I will let go of, until you come up with an idea and you're able to write and flow again. Really what we're going to try and do is like write from the top of the brain and the heart, instead of sitting there and going, right, I'm just going to think of one idea in 3 minutes. We're just going to get as much down in the paper as possible, and don't worry, we're not going to share anything that you don't want to, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the track of music. I want you to write continuously. And when we're finished, I'll tell you where this work is going. We're going to pick the best one or two, and we're going to post them in the chat box. Before we do that, I'm going to just put a track of music on, and I'm going to give everyone 3 minutes. So when you're ready, everyone, something to hold on to, something to let go of. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to effectively going to create a performance text, basically. And just to kind of, as we're typing these in, really the aim of this exercise is to form positive relationships through active listening, storytelling, and discussion. So really what we'd probably do at this point is we'd listen to everyone's ideas. And then what we do is we craft them into a text, and we'd allow the performance of that text to really speak to the ideas and the values that we're talking about. And then we'd discuss it. But sadly, we don't have time to discuss it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the performance text out for everyone. So I will hold on to connecting regularly with people beyond those who live nearby. I will let go of, "You're on mute." I will hold on to the feelings of hope. I will hold on to challenges that bring good changes. I will leave back-to-back Zoom/Teams calls. I will let go of my apathy. I will hold on to seeing my family finally. I will hold on to one more time with my dog, Sid. I will go off planning far too far in the future. I will let go of wasted time. I will hold on to quality time with my cat. I will hold on to slowing down and walking more. I will hold on to happiness, movement, freedom, and family. I will hold on to extra time spent with my family. I will hold on to my grandma's voice. I will hold on to getting 10 hours of sleep a night. I will hold on to drinking iced coffee. I will hold on to the people in my life that I love, make me happy, and drive me nuts at the same time. I will let go of needing the house to be tidy. I will hold on to the fun times of becoming a teacher for the first time. I will let go of the times my pupils drove me up the wall and didn't listen to the wisdom I had to impart. I will hold on to morning yoga. I will let go of working from my bedroom. I will let go of loneliness. I found I love me time. We'll just give a wee round of applause into the void, but if you are sitting with your camera off, give yourself a wee round of applause. That is lovely stuff. Thank you so much. It's so nice to see people. So that's just a wee task, basically, from Positive Stories for Negative Times. And I think it's a nice way to just engage people in the work that we're doing and what it's all about. And like, I think that's the thing, creativity is everywhere and it's in everyone. And that's what this project really urges to engage people with. Really, just to wrap up, I'm going to just post a wee link in the chat box for anyone that does want to see some of the brilliant work that's going on. It's an article from the Scotsman sessions, Joyce McMillan, and I think it's the first time I've seen Joyce McMillan profile a bit of youth arts in this context, and that is like dead exciting for me. And really, it's like the pandemic has seen community work really take its place among main stage and digital programming, and for me that's what's so exciting. And I'm going to really, really quickly, before we finish, zoom through some of the amazing bits of practice that are happening. In Bannerman High School, there's 200 young people working on a cross-departmental version of Hold Out Your Hand, including the drama department, S2s, S5s, the art and design department are doing the background, the music department are doing the music. It's all to play for in that school. There's a care experienced audio drama radio version of The Pack going on. There's an emerging theatre company working with a women's group on Bad Board Women of the Rooms. There's a photography group who have decided to take pictures of all the lines that Chris Thorpe's play, and all the ideas, and then get a professional actor to perform it. There's also an international programme happening where one teacher is teaching pupils from 7 different countries at the same time on Zoom. These are some of the totally out there bits of practice that are happening with these 3 plays, but it is only scratching the surface, and everything far, few, and in between as well. Really, that's what's one of the most exciting bits about this programme. I believe Stornoway are gearing towards doing live performances of the plays as well. So really, anything that you can imagine is being done with these plays, and that's what it's all about for us. I spoke about co-design right at the start, and we're furthering that idea this year by creating a youth board who will now drive the project forward at every juncture and be the real beating heart behind the project. In addition to the youth board, we're also putting out for a young person's commission for a young person to age 16 to 25 to be alongside the other professional playwrights for Positive Stories for Negative Times 2, and also moving beyond the handbook and going into a digital CPD program where people can interact and learn skills together cohesively as a community. The Young Persons Commission, the Youth Board, will join our very exciting team this year, which includes Douglas Maxwell, Hannah Lavery, the physical theatre company from London, the Pappy Show, Bryony Kimmings, which I'm extremely excited about, Debris Stevenson, who wrote Poet in the Corner, and Wonderfuls will write the Sixth Commission. So that's where we are. That's what Positive Stories for Negative Times 2 is going to be. And really, this project will go from co-design right through to co-creation, because we'll have that youth board sitting making all the decisions at every juncture. Their first decision is tomorrow, when they decide which young person is going to be commissioned as the first 16 to 25-year-old who will write a play for Positive Stories for Negative Times. That is my presentation. Thank you for having me. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions, I'd be more than up for answering them.